What I'm doing right now is playing a sport called baseball. All around the world today, we see young aspiring athletes playing different types of sports, including baseball, soccer, badminton, you name it. However, if you notice, there's a disproportionate amount of males that tend to be playing this sport. And the reason for this is because of something called gender stereotypes. That's what we're going to aim to explore today in our video. Now let's look at one of our very own faculty members from our SAS community talking about what she thinks of gender stereotypes and how they affect her life on a daily basis.
Hi, my name is Ms. Chang. I'm the Study Hall Independent Study Supervisor. I believe there are gender stereotypes, especially in the media, and in when I was growing up, it's definitely in the textbooks. Gender stereotypes. Okay, so definitely, I think the male is usually portrayed of the more gregarious, outgoing, stronger physically. Women are generally regarded to be more submissive, quiet, more of a follower. Generation now, in your ages, is much better because I'm sure you're introduced to toys of both gender. Like girls are gonna play with sports equipment and boxing gloves and guns, everything, and boys would be playing with toys like dollhouses. At least there's no gender association with these. I think you're given these, and kids of both genders are able to make their own choices.
As we saw in Ms. Chang's interview, gender stereotypes are pervasive in our society. This gender stereotype can be explained through the social cognitive learning theory, which is learned behavior through observation. Through vicarious reinforcement, people are rewarded for following these social norms or get stigmatized for being different. Through observation and retention of this behavior, stereotypes of masculine and feminine behaviors are built.
So another thing that Clee didn't talk about.
Another thing that Clee didn't talk about is how
schema
is perpetuated by
it's perpetuating gender stereotypes. Yeah. So what's schema, Chris? Let's define schema.
Wait. Schema
Yeah, there's there's some bidirectional ambiguity there. But I don't know, like, what's a schema, Chris? I think it's like
schema.
Yeah,
is a schema are mental representations.
Mental representations,
of experiences, and thoughts that people have towards making it wrong.
So I would say like the preconceived notions people have about schema. For example, you thinking that maybe girls are like kind of like your mother, right? Because your mom is a girl, right? Things like that. These preconceived notions then affect how you talk with other individuals about characteristic traits of these individuals and characteristic traits in general of like how these specific genders are. So I think it perpetuates.
Like to give an example
of how it perpetuates gender stereotypes, right? So like I want to talk a little bit about availability heuristics, right? So effectively, like the fact that in media around us there's a large availability and abundance of, say, for example, the portrayal of nurses to be typically female or the portrayal of teachers to be typically male. These are kind of preconceived notions that then affect our perception on what gender stereotypes ought to be and what certain genders can be. So now that we've established this, I think it's important to look at like different cultures and how they establish gender stereotypes. So let's go interview one of the guards.
Okay,
cool.
作业就是我们需要访问我们学校不同的人员。我想访问你，你们愿意被我访问吗？我现在没空，我现在要站岗。哦，好，那你那里面的那个，哦好，哦好，不好意思，麻烦了。
不好意思，您好，我们现在学校有个功课，我得访问您，您愿意被我访问吗？
哎呦，等一下。
好。
你去，我也不愿意。我来写，我来写。我来有写，我来写。你去。
就很快5个问题而已，就关于就是我们社会对。
我回答不了。
我们社会的就是一些刻板印象。您好，不好意思，我们现在学校有个东西，就想要来就访问一些我们周围学校的人，您愿意被访问吗？
多久？
就5分，顶多5分钟而已。
之后我们会录你，然后之后会问我。
我叫李硕，
啊，
是安徽人。
好，您好。那第一个问题是，您觉得社会上有没有对什么男性或女性有特定的刻板印象？
有的。
那您可以举一些例子吗？您觉得？
男的，在中国来说，大多数都是要这个赚钱养家、糊口，对吧？女性就要看小孩儿，对吧？然后照顾小孩儿，教育小孩儿。
好，那您觉得这有怎么样影响到你？
我还没结婚，所以
您还没结婚，
还没有影响到我。
那您觉得我们有什么方法可以让我们就是来脱离这些刻板印象或者这些客观的一些印象？
就需要多学习嘛，学习像你们那个是吧？学校这个美国学校这些就外国人的一些习俗，多学习一下，然后多参考一下。
好，
比较一下。
谢谢，麻烦了。
Wow, Chris, we certainly see a trend in gender stereotypes among Eastern and Western cultures.
Yeah, I agree. Why do you think that is?
Well, through the rise of globalization, Eastern and Western cultures have become accessible to the same image of gender stereotypes.
Yeah, I think that's true. Like, if you look at media in today's society, for example, like the movie Forrest Gump, you can see clear gender stereotypes. For example, how soldiers are generally portrayed by males, and how nurses are perpetuated to be females.
I agree, and this gender stereotype is also portrayed in ads. In baseball ads, boys are portrayed as being masculine sports players, and car ads incorporate boys playing with cars.
Yeah, and another example of that would be like how Barbie advertisements always show little girls playing with Barbie dolls, and I think this shows like a broader trend of how our current generation is telling the future generation what they can and cannot be.
Wow, I definitely like to read on my MacBook. Since we love to read so much, we kind of lost track of what we were doing and we ended up taking a photo instead of an audio. So here we are explaining to you what should have been in this section. If you see in literature, you also see oftentimes the exact same book is used, but the title and the color of the cover is changed in an attempt to show a clear distinction between male and female in terms of gender. Such notion in society then also acts as a means of actively segregating individual groups, and by doing so, we're perpetuating this narrative that there are different expectations for what it means to be a girl and a boy.
As my fellow psychology cohorts have mentioned, there's a long list of gender stereotypes. Bandura says that these stereotypes are built through us observing and looking up to these people who perpetuate these ideas.
What we talked about today was very simple. That gender stereotypes are formed through the media we perceive, and as a result of that, many people perceive men to be, for example, soldiers,
scientist, police officer,
STEM people,
Film director.
Similarly, media, schema, and SCLT portrays specific gender stereotypes about women, such as nurses,
caring and nurturing mother, elementary school teacher,
good-looking actresses.
What these examples our peers talked about show is despite us coming from different cultural and social backgrounds, we still have quite a uniform understanding of what it means to be a man and a woman because society has quite a universal form of gender stereotypes. And the reason for this is because of the recent rise in globalization that mixes together a lot of Eastern and Western media to form this universal expectation of what it means to be a man or a woman. Given that, these gender stereotypes are particularly pervasive as they constrict individuals and they force you to be someone you have to be even if you don't want to. That's all for today, and we hope you learn more about gender stereotypes.
1, 2, 3.
Okay. No, let's just say it, Chris. It's literally 2 right. You can do it. No, Chris, please, let's just start. Chris.
Man, that part is so hard. Gender stereotypes. Why are you filming this thing?
That's not funny, man.
People who perpetuate
Gender stereotypes.
gender stereotypes.